Welcome, everyone. This is More Than Money. I'm Mark Manila.
I'm Stephen Balance.
And we're glad you're with us as we talk about everything financial from a biblical perspective.
Yes, and today, you know what, before we get into anything, we actually want to bring up a good friend of ours.
Well, it's somebody we really admire. One
Yeah.
of the best writers on finance and Bible
Yeah.
combined. That's Randy Alcorn.
Yeah, we've mentioned Randy Alcorn here on the show before, and a couple shows ago we actually mentioned some of his books. But today we wanted to bring up something that we found out about his family. I believe his wife
Nancy Wright is currently battling cancer.
Yeah.
And we would like you to pray for her. Randy and his family have gone through so much, standing firm for Christ, for biblical values, for protecting life. They lost everything at one time because of their stance on abortion, on being pro-life. They've spent their life just serving the Lord and bringing people closer to Christ who already know Him and to Christ who don't. And we covet your prayers for them, for Randy and Nancy, and ask that you pray for them, not just for healing, but that God would allow these servants to stay with us, and that they would continue steadfast in joy and peace in the Lord, and just glorify God, because they are such great people and have done such great works. And lift them up to the Lord and give thanks to the Lord for their ministry, including the books that they've written. Some of the books we talk about often, like this book here, which is Managing God's Money. And one that a lot of people really liked, a really easy read, is The Treasure Principle. Here's the heart of Randy and Nancy. We mentioned must-read books, or my favorite list of books, a while back in one of these broadcasts, and they sent us some books to give away.
Yeah.
I mean, they just, even in their tribulations and their trials, and they're just looking out for others. So today, I guess for the first two people who contact us, either by just logging on and saying, hey, I want that book, or by emailing us, we're going to give you one of these two books that Randy and Nancy sent to us to give away, to honor you, and even as they're going through all this. So we ask for your prayers for them.
Yeah. So, again, Mark said you can email us, contact@mtmministry.com. Well, we've had a couple people comment, and
just comment.
It's just as
Facebook
easy as that.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll get you a book.
Yeah. So to get into the show, Mark, we're actually going to take a slightly different turn today.
Okay.
We're going to talk about a completely different group of people. So
sounds kind of racist. What are you doing here?
More ageist.
Oh, ageist.
So we normally talk about finances after people get a job, anywhere from 18 to 99 even. We talk about finances, we talk about investing, all throughout that spectrum of life, but there's one group of people that we often don't hit that are just as important to train for biblical principles on finance, and that would be children.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And our focus today will be not only just the children, but the idea of biblical finances from when you're first born all the way throughout your life, and how consistent they are and how powerful they are.
Yeah, and how important it is. The earlier you can begin training up a child. They say that, for example, the best time to learn a foreign language is between the ages of 1 and 5.
Yeah.
Now, why is that? It's because the brain is so moldable, because things are there, because every muscle in your body hasn't been trained to react, especially the tongue in a way.
Yeah.
So the same thing's true with almost every aspect of life. God created us uniquely. He gave us these brains. He's given us these abilities. The best time to burn those neurons in, to create those pathways, is when somebody is young. Recently I was talking to quite a few people, but I came to understand that almost nobody balances a checkbook anymore.
Yeah, when you told me, I'd ask what that was. No.
I find that really interesting.
Mm.
Just the awareness that comes from balancing your checkbook. To know, I think there's a proverb that talks about knowing the state of your flocks.
Yeah.
It's very important. Why would that be important? Well, it's important to stay on top of everything, because then you have knowledge and information, and you can make decisions from a knowledge base instead of a fear or a greed base. So understanding where, the balance in your checkbook, where your money's going, would be very important. Now, if people aren't managing their checkbooks at this point, they're just going online, looking and seeing if they got any money in the account, things like that, then it tells me they're not taking their money very serious. They're not pre-planning. They're not aware, conscious, alert about their money. Well, why not? Well, because that whole generation was not raised on the idea of being diligent about your finances. It's rather amazing to me, and it kind of corresponds directly with the training of children in all other aspects, including God's Word.
Yeah.
You know,
I think I told you this earlier. I was speaking to someone a while back, and they mentioned that after a splurge weekend, they actually won't check their account because they're afraid of what is or isn't in there.
Yeah, we shouldn't act out of fear.
No. but that idea of knowing the state of your flock and knowing where your finances are.
Sure, and imagine if you spent, that where your treasure is, there your heart is also.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want people to covet money, but if you put your mind into your finances a little more than you do, then you'll start managing your finances better, because it'll be top of mind at that. So what's that got to do with children? Well, the best time to help children understand this is when they're very, very young. Start them by training them up. There's verses. I mean, think about this. Back in Jesus's time, you used to have 2-3 generations living in a household together.
Yeah.
The patriarch, the great-grandfather, would be passing down wisdom day in and day out to 2 generations. Not just, living on his own, dying and leaving an inheritance and letting them figure it out. He would be teaching them about farming or raising sheep or making quilts or whatever they did. He'd be teaching them the business. He'd be teaching them to be diligent in their finances. He'd be showing them the ways of the Lord and raising them up to understand that. It's like that one verse that talks about train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. You see, when a child is young, they're more malleable, and you can influence them and prepare them. Unlike many parents today, and maybe for the last 10, 20 years, who were cared more about being their children's friend instead of being their mentor, protector, and parent.
Yeah.
Think about this. If you never told your kids and you sheltered them from the manipulations of the world, when they get out in the world, they're going to be manipulated. They're going to be used and abused. If you don't ever teach them that fire is hot, they're going to end up sticking their hand in a fire. So it's very important as a parent that we care for our children and bring them up with a knowledge of finance from a biblical perspective. Because God created you and me and your children, and God created the world. He created money and the physics of finance. So we should go to the Bible, which is the book on everything about how we should live life, and utilize that as we're raising our kids. And we're supposed to be diligent in our finances. We're supposed to give. We're supposed to understand giving as a blessing, not as a curse. We're supposed to understand the pain and all the negativeness that can come from borrowing. So if we don't teach our children this, then they grow up and they think it's okay to just spend, and doesn't matter if they overdraft their account, because they got an overdraft account at 29.9% until it runs up to the max, and then they got to, and then they got to go borrow money from somebody, from mom and dad, to pay that down. So if we don't prepare our children, who will? That's the bottom line. And I'd rather my children grow up prepared and that way they can enjoy life more instead of having the anxiety and frustration that comes from all the ugly surprises of finance that you learn not in college, not in high school, but when you get out in the real world, when mom and dad aren't there to shelter you anymore.
You know, and I think personally, I think another big part to bring up is the things that God already puts in your child's heart, the good things. I would recommend to foster those, such as sharing.
Sharing.
You know, sharing and giving. Real little kids. You know, I don't have kids, so I don't know what age this stops. But they always come up and they keep giving you stuff. It could be theirs, but they constantly give you stuff.
That's neat, isn't it?
Yeah, and to foster that idea that it's not theirs. They want others to be happy. They want to share and give. I mean, that's a biblical principle.
I have not done this survey, but maybe it's something we should do online, a survey. And just ask anybody under 30 whose money it is. Whose house or whose car is it? Who owns all these things? And my guess is very few of them would come back and say they're the Lord's and that I'm just a steward. That wasn't so many years ago that almost all Christians understood that. But because our society has pulled and tugged on us so much, we have stopped bringing up our children in the ways of the Lord and lost them to the ways of the world. And it's a very sad thing. And they're going to get eaten alive, because if we haven't brought them up in the ways of the Lord and the wisdom of the Lord, then they're going to start buying into the lies and the confusion of the world and start doing things like living on debt, living on borrowed money, using other people's money instead of realizing that the only satisfaction you really receive comes from you realizing the fullness of Christ in you by utilizing the gifts, talents, and abilities He's given you in this world to help others, to serve others, to produce, to work. You know, work is such an incredible thing. Work, just like the personal finances, seem to have been put into a worldly deceptions, and unlike the Bible, which shows us that if we work as unto the Lord, we can feel the joy of Christ in our life. We can feel the joy of God in our life as we grow and learn and do things with what He's given us the abilities to do.
You know, and my hope for you, as well as myself, because we're constantly growing, is to keep that heart. Keep that heart that everything is God's. I was at church with a friend a week or two ago, and his you know, the plates go around, or the bags go around to collect the offering, and she was so excited. She took a little bit of money. She was extremely excited, awesome. And I was almost jealous of her, because you know, we get so systematic that we forget about it. And so keep that heart that everything is God's, and this is an honor.
Yeah. And so imagine all the people out there who are going through life hating their job, hating work, think that the best thing to do is win the lottery so that they can have millions of dollars and not have to work, not realizing that we are fulfilled by actually executing what God has enabled us to do, by realizing the fullness of Christ in our work. Yeah. You know, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but it's something I've mentioned many times in broadcasts and writings and radio and all the stuff I've done, that I've never met a happy, lazy person. But they were taught that work is demeaning, that, you know, that they deserve more than to have to work. And yet we get to work. That's the bottom line, is God created us physically, emotionally, and mentally able to work. And in doing so, we actually start feeling the joy of the Lord as we are doing things that are in alignment with biblical values to His glory in our work. Same thing's true with our finances. The more we manage our finances in alignment with the tenets of stewardship, or understanding of honoring God in all we do in our finances, the more we feel His joy. Life becomes more joyful when we do things His way, biblical ways. And that's why it's so important to bring up our children in this knowledge. Little children need to understand that work is a blessing. Having finances that you get to manage is a blessing. Yeah. These are good things, and here's how the Lord says to do them. You know, and that's what's really great. Learn that just like giving is a blessing, work is a blessing, and financial management, being a steward, is a blessing. If our children are raised this way, they'll be able to embrace more joy, more peace, less anxiety, and less frustration, because they understand the wisdom of God in their finances.
So, Mark, I know we're running a little short on time here, but I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Again,
So,
continuously.
say for those who, they're past that age. They're past that age of being considered a child, or maybe they haven't learned everything that we're discussing. If you had one piece of advice that you could give someone who's past that age of maybe being malleable, I don't know, but if you have one piece of advice,
But you're never too old to learn.
Okay.
You're never too old to learn. And the biggest thing you can do as a believer, as a human being in this world of finance, is to learn God's wisdom on finances. Crown Ministries, Randy Alcorn, Kingdom Advisors, the NACFC. Find an advisor who is a Christian, somebody who embraces the wisdom of God, who has studied the Bible for many, many years, and who understands what money, possessions, and eternity is all about. One of Randy's
books. Yeah.
Better books. And get those books. In fact, you can get one of them right now by just letting us know you want one, and we'll get it to you to help you. Grow in the knowledge and wisdom of the Lord. And as you do so, you will feel the joy of the Lord. You'll feel some anxiety still. We're not perfected yet. That's a long time to come, but you will start realizing more joy in your life as you embrace God's ways and put away the world's ways.
Well, thank you, Mark. As you said, give us a call, email us, comment on this. We'll get you one of these books. Also, keep your eye out because Mark's book is going to be coming out very soon.
Be released very soon, yes, and we look forward to it. To get them out to as many people as we can.
Yeah.
Our prayer, and if you wouldn't mind praying for this, our prayer is that it has an impact on people's lives, that it draws them closer to God through their finances, not despite them.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you for clearing up a little bit of this information for us. We really appreciate it.
Anything we can do, let us know. And you can also just continue, pass it on about these broadcasts, because we'll be teaching finances as we go forward more and more from a biblical perspective. God bless everyone.
All right. Well, we thank you, and we hope just a little bit that we've helped you realize that life is
so much more
than money.